Out of the gate, JT, it's great to be here on a Mendoza Monday. Mendoza Monday brought to you by the DeCastroverde Law Group. Yeah, they wanted it, they got it. They know the impact of Fernando Mendoza. And we went first with Mendoza Monday. I don't own it, I don't copyright it, but we're here first with Mendoza Monday. And hopefully it's going to be Victory Mondays in years to come. Hope everybody had a great weekend. I had a great weekend. I'm ready to roll this week. And we got a lot to get to. Breaking news in the NFL, Myles Garrett traded to the LA Rams. Oh boy, what is that? Oh no. Well, oh yes, kind of. We got Cleveland there. We play Cleveland. We play the Rams this year at home, so that'll affect the Raiders, no doubt about it. You should be watching now. We're live on YouTube at JT the Brick, YT, our own channel there. Get in there. Get in the chat on X at JT the Brick, and, of course, on Raider Nation Radio, where you can listen to us live on the Raiders mobile app. All you got to do is go to the Raiders official team app and click on the radio icon in the upper right corner to get the show audio-wise, and you get the video-wise as we stream here on YouTube. So let me get into the Myles Garrett deal and how that affects the NFL. This is a blockbuster deal. It's one of the biggest deals in NFL history when it comes to a great player in their prime because it's a trade. And remember Reggie White, a free agent. Right? If you look at Lawrence Taylor stayed with the Giants. He's the greatest defensive player of all time. Aaron Donald. How is Aaron Donald retired? The guy's in the best shape of his life. That's a big topic I want to get into right out of the gate here. Aaron Donald today should come out of retirement today. He should come out of retirement today and say, I'm going to play one more year with the Rams next to Myles Garrett. All right, so let me get that out there because that's the first thing I would do. If I was Aaron Donald, I'd say, what? We got Myles Garrett. I'm back. I'm in great shape. I don't even need a training camp. I can outlift everybody on that team right now. And if he comes out because his rights are with the Rams, it's over. If you have those two guys up front on the defensive line, forget about it. Niner fans would be running from San Francisco to Santa Clara if Aaron Donald came out of retirement today. I don't think the Niner empire could handle that move if it happened. Seattle just won the Super Bowl. I don't think they're going to win the Super Bowl again. I don't think they're as good as the team that walked off the field, the Super Bowl champions. I thought the Rams were better than them, even though Seattle won the Super Bowl. But it felt like that game between Seattle and the Rams was really the Super Bowl overall. And the Rams said, man, we lost that game to Sam Darnold. We got to get better. And they got rid of Jared Verse, who I think is a really good player. Really good player. I mean, it wasn't like they just got Myles Garrett. They had to give up an excellent football player in Jared Verse. I think he's one of the best young defensive players in football. And a lot of people think Cleveland got the best end of this trade for what they have. So let's begin with Ian Rappaport. He's now with ESPN and NFL Network. As ESPN absorbed NFL Network, they're keeping Adam Schefter, Ian Rappaport, Tom Pelissero, and that whole crew together. Here's his thoughts.
The Los Angeles Rams were the team. They were the team. They were persistent. They reached out to the Cleveland Browns wanting to trade for Myles Garrett around the time when the Browns adjusted Myles Garrett's contract to move some bonuses up a little bit. The Browns said, no, he is not available. The Rams tried again after the draft and said, we want him. Here's more. They said, no, he is not available. Okay, well, then they said, what if we included Jared Verse? Well, that was someone the Cleveland Browns have had eyes on for a long time. When Jared Verse was suddenly in the deal, the picks got moved around a little bit. It got to a point where the two teams said, you know what? This could actually happen. They're expected to agree in totality later today. Right now, they are finalizing this deal, this absolute stunner. Myles Garrett expected to be a member of the Los Angeles Rams, the one and only team to pursue him. Persistence pays off for Les Snead, for Sean McVay and company. Just an unbelievable day. Unbelievable.
Yeah, it is an unbelievable deal. So does it guarantee them anything? It doesn't guarantee them anything, but they have the MVP in Matthew Stafford. They have Devontae Adams, who quit on the Raiders. Sorry, he did. Did he get a better opportunity? He got a much better opportunity. He did, but he quit on the Raiders. Myles Garrett did not quit on Cleveland. He had one of the greatest seasons ever for a defensive end. So with all that happening, I got my phone's blowing up. Everybody's asking me about Max Crosby, Max Crosby, Max Crosby. And I'm like, what are you asking me about Max Crosby? Max Crosby's on the Raiders. If Max Crosby didn't have an injury, he would have been a Baltimore Raven. They agreed to a trade. He went there. Baltimore played some shenanigans. They knew Max was hurt. They knew Max couldn't pass a physical. They got cold feet because the Raiders ripped Tyler Linderbaum out of their organization here, and they backed out of the deal. And the Raiders would have traded Max Crosby because Max Crosby was open to a trade, and Max wanted to compete for a ring just like Myles Garrett. I think that the whole time that Max has played for the Raiders, and the Raiders haven't been a good team for quite some time, they were a little bit better than Cleveland or had a better path than Cleveland, and Myles Garrett finally is going to get an opportunity to play for a ring. He wasn't going to have an opportunity to play for a ring in Cleveland. I'm always amazed when players re-sign with Cleveland. Look, if you get drafted by Cleveland, you got to play there. You get drafted by Cleveland, you got to play there. You're not going to hold out. You're going to play there. You're not going to win. So the second you can get out of Cleveland, you don't have to sign a rookie extension. You know, maybe they'll franchise tag if you're great, but you don't have to sign. The second you get a chance to re-sign with Cleveland, you say, no, I respect your opinion. No, I'm not re-signing. I'm going to play out my contract and go win. Myles Garrett never did that. Myles Garrett always re-signed with Cleveland. Same thing, I go back to Donovan McNabb. I was talking about that with him at a Super Bowl with Philadelphia. Why do you keep re-signing with Philadelphia? You know they're going to run you out of town. Well, they're giving me better deals. They're letting me re-sign early, so I'm taking the money. So Myles Garrett finally is out of Cleveland, where he has an opportunity to end his career, and it's not going to end in the next year or two, but it's going to end pretty soon here. It's going to end in the next 3 to 5 years. He could go into Canton, Ohio in the Hall of Fame as a world champion and arguably the greatest defensive end of all time. Now, Reggie White would have something to say about that. Lawrence Taylor is the greatest defensive player of all time. He was an edge rusher, more of a linebacker that morphed into an edge rusher. But it'd be hard to sit there and say Myles Garrett isn't the greatest of all time. He's already on the Mount Rushmore. He's already on the Mount Rushmore. And now he's going to get a chance to play with the Rams. So getting back to Max, do I think that teams are kicking the tires with Max? I don't know. I'm not in John Spytek's office, but a blockbuster went down today, and I think that Max Crosby is right there with Myles Garrett. Right there. I'm a big believer that Max, when healthy, is as good, if not a better run stopper and train wrecker than even Myles Garrett, who's just better at sacks. And a great player. I have no problem saying Myles Garrett is better than Max Crosby. But Max Crosby's in the conversation. So a lot of people are saying, is Max getting traded today? Not that I'm aware of. I don't want him to get traded. I was the guy sitting there campaigning to keep him. I think you're a much better team with Max Crosby. Much better team with Max Crosby here, and I don't believe in late first-round picks. Let me say that again. I don't believe in the 25th pick in the first round, and this upcoming draft is going to be worse than the one we just had. It'll be better for quarterbacks, but the Raiders don't need a quarterback. They have Fernando Mendoza. So is there a chance that Max Crosby can get traded? Yeah, of course. I think the Raiders would always look to any player that they could move to upgrade the team long term, but we've been through this Max drama. I know most Raider Nation don't want to see him go. I'm not insinuating if someone will clip this and put it up on some website saying JT the Brick talking Max Crosby trade. No, I'm not. But everybody's blowing my phone up saying if it happened to Myles Garrett, could it happen to Max? Hell yeah, it can. The Rams just traded for Myles Garrett. You don't think the Eagles and the 49ers are interested in Max Crosby? They're interested. I don't know what they know if there's a deal available or what the Raiders want to hold back for a deal. I would hope that Max Crosby plays years for the Raiders because I think coming off this injury that he had surgery on and he looks to be great. I told you I was with him in the weight room the other day and we had a great conversation that he's ready to go. But anything could happen in this league because of what happened today. The deal today was more people were worried about A.J. Brown potentially getting traded here by the end of the day to New England, Clay Baker. That was more of a buzz than when you were on the air today on the morning tailgate and you got the news about Myles Garrett. What was that like?
Yeah, it was inevitable that you figured, all right, A.J. Brown's moving on. New England seems the imminent suitor. But Myles Garrett, that came out of nowhere. Even today, as the Cleveland Browns were hosting an annual charity golf event at Firestone, Andrew Barry was like, yeah, well, there is a deal in the works, and people were shuffling all over saying, well, what? Todd Monken, the new head coach, was like, we're not assured of anything as head coaches. I know I'm new on the job, but even I was shocked.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the way Clint Kubiak handled everything with Max initially when he was like, we want Max. Max is our best player, and we want Max here. But, look, when it comes to what happened with Cleveland is I think Cleveland got a lot in return for an aging player who's still in the prime of his career. You can't debate that Myles Garrett is not in the prime of his career after the numbers he put up last year. You can't debate that. He's still in his prime. I'm not saying LeBron's in his prime going on 42, but if you're averaging 27 a night, you're kind of in your prime. At least your stats are saying this. So they got a good player in Cleveland in Jared Verse. He's not Myles Garrett, but he's really good. And then they get a first-round pick. So if you look at what they got, if the Raiders ever traded for any player, okay, so I just don't want to pivot or just stay in the world of Max Crosby. But if the Raiders traded and got a first-round draft pick and a young player who is technically an all-pro or an all-star, a pro bowler, I like that more than draft picks. Like, I think Cleveland getting Verse was really good because they get a first-round pick and nobody knows what a first-round pick's going to be. It could be a bust. Could be a non-impact guy in the first round. But you're getting Verse to build around your defense. He's from that region of the country, and that's going to be a good cornerstone player for Cleveland going forward. So the other big topic that I want to get into here as we open up the show is a few years ago. I don't travel as much with the Raiders. They let me travel when I want to, and, still doing the pre- and post-game show at the stadium, at home, but on the road. I get an opportunity to go to a game or two my whole career. I really like it. I like getting out there. I think this year will be the Jets game, so I can see some family back in New York. But anyway, I was at the Rams game a couple of years ago where Baker Mayfield got the playbook. He got the playbook between 24 hours and 36 hours of playing the Raiders. And I was at that game. And I was in one of those VIP luxury suites with the great former Raider, Morris Bradshaw. And may he rest in peace. He was a dear friend and confidant in my life, a mentor. And we're sitting there, and we're sitting there in this suite, and I got to do the post-game show. So I got to find my way at SoFi back to the press box, which you really need, like Lewis and Clark, to get you there at SoFi. Like, you got to go up elevators, shafts, and banks. It's a mess. It's a mess. And I'm like, I got to keep an eye. I got to get up there after the game. So I was there when Baker Mayfield got the ball and went the length of the field and scored on the Raiders, which was one of the low moments I've been a part of in Raider history. Let me repeat. That was one of the low moments I've been a part of with the Raiders in a game situation. Okay, I was there when Shannon Sharp caught the touchdown in the AFC Championship game. We all know about the Tuck rule. There's bigger moments. But the Baker Mayfield moment really stood with me because on the first play of that drive, Max Crosby was held in the end zone. He was held in the end zone, which would have, and I don't know why it wasn't called, would have been an automatic safety, and the game would have ended. It would have been a safety. The Raiders would have got 2 points. The Rams would have had a punt from the 20, and the game was over. And they didn't call that holding on Max. And I remember it vividly because I saw it live, and they showed it on the replay. And then Baker Mayfield went the length of the field, and he ended up scoring that touchdown. The Raiders had a blown coverage, which is one of the worst blown coverages I've ever seen. Single coverage, the only way you can lose the game is single coverage with the subpar player, and they got beat. So I went on the post-game show, and I remember it clearly. And from that point on, I started screaming on this channel to get Baker Mayfield. You know that's true. You know that's true. I was the only guy. And I said, just go get Baker Mayfield. He's available for nothing. $30 million. They didn't do it. They didn't get Baker Mayfield. And I thought the Baker Mayfield moment was a pivotal moment for the Raiders, and it was, here's why, leading up to today. Look where both organizations went after that play. Look where the Raiders went And look where the Rams are today. The Rams are a heavy favorite to win the Super Bowl, and they got the best roster in football by far. They have the best roster in football. And the Raiders ended up getting the first pick in the draft with only 3 wins. That's dipping the show in reality. But that's in the past. And I've been trying to tell you, under this new regime, as John Spidek had a second draft and Clint Kubiak is here, this new regime, we shouldn't be talking about the past much more. We all know how bad it was. Josh McDaniels, Pete Carroll, Antonio Pierce had good moments, but overall, the team did worse and worse and worse until we got to this point. And I think most people in Raider Nation are on the same page that this looks really good now. This looks really good. It's different. It seems different. It looks different. I agree with that. You know, that's the way it is. But wow. Look where both franchises went on that Baker Mayfield game-winning drive the length of the field. And the Rams now are loaded. And the Raiders had the first pick in the draft. Now, the Raiders here in year 7 at Allegiant Stadium should be competing for the Super Bowl. If you go back 3 or 4 years with all the hirings and mistakes and players coming in, the Raiders should have figured it out, made a couple of mistakes here and there, but got it right. And now we'd be talking about them competing for a Super Bowl, and we're starting from the bottom again. The Rams are at the top. So now it's time to get this thing right. So that's how I tie in Myles Garrett today, is the fact that the Rams are all in. I'll tie it into my Knicks also. My Knicks got a guy named Mikal Bridges, and I believe they had to give up 4 first-round picks for him. I could be wrong. It was either 3 or 4 first-round picks for Mikal Bridges. Who the hell's Mikal Bridges? He's a good player, but he's not Hakeem Olajuwon in his prime. Now the Knicks are in the NBA Finals. The Knicks didn't care about 4 first-round picks. They wanted to get a guy who can get them 30 a night and lead them to a title. They did. And then they were able to get Karl Anthony Towns, Jalen Brunson, signed for less to stay. And the Knicks were like, we're all in. And the Knicks are all in. Well, the Rams are all in. So, are the Rams going to win the Super Bowl? The Super Bowl will be in L.A. this year, the beginning of next year. I don't know. Some guy could blow out a knee. Quarterback could get hurt. Whatever they're going to do. But the Rams today said to the 49ers, the Seahawks, the Eagles, the Packers, they said to all those teams, you are chasing us. We are the team to beat. We just got Myles Garrett. And again, I would, if I was the entire organization, I'd pick up Myles Garrett on the private jet, and I'd go right to Aaron Donald's house. I'd go right to Aaron Donald's house, which I'm sure is a mansion somewhere in L.A., and sit down with him after he's having his 3rd workout of the day, and he's got a 36-pack, and go, hey, Aaron, come on back for 1 more year. Let's put the band back together and do that. I would do that today. So that's what we're talking about. Wow, what a blockbuster deal. If you're a Rams fan, and there aren't a lot of Rams fans in L.A., but now they're growing. They got a good brand. They do got a good brand. They're doing it right. They're doing it right. Young people are gravitating to the Rams, and the Rams just did a blockbuster deal. In a market now that has Shohei Ohtani, right, still has Mike Trout, who's a great player, has Myles Garrett. Wow. LeBron James, Luka Doncic. Man, if you're in L.A. right now, that's pretty loaded. That's pretty good if you got some TV packages and some apps and you want to watch sports in L.A. I lived in L.A. for 10 years, and a lot of time it was a dead sports town other than the Lakers. And, of course, the Dodgers have a massive brand, but there wasn't a lot going on before the Chargers got there. How do you think the Chargers are feeling today? You don't think the Chargers could have used Myles Garrett? Right? I mean, why can't the Chargers do that deal? They're in L.A. They pay rent to Stan Kroenke. Why couldn't they put a deal together and get him? So the Rams are all in. They went balls out. I like that in sports. I do. I like it when it happens to my team more. And for those who are wondering about Max Crosby, I would assume teams are kicking the tires on Max Crosby after this deal went down, Clay. I think without speculating on who's calling, which I'm not aware of, nor do I want to see him traded at any level, I love Max. I'm emceeing his foundation at the end of the month, his gala at Allegiant Stadium. I love Max Crosby as a person, his wife, Rachel. you got to assume people are calling saying, wait, we didn't know Myles Garrett was available. This is what it costs to get him. What does it cost to get Max Crosby?
And we can only assume that because he was officially traded, months ago and then comes back. But at the same time, if you were willing to do it the first time, you might be willing to do it again.
Yep. So let's hope that there is no Max deal out there because I don't see – now, look, if you would say – you got to say to yourself, if Max wasn't injured, he probably would have been a Raven, right? If he wasn't injured, didn't have anything with the knees, probably a Raven. And then you got to ask with his knee today, what happens if they couldn't come to terms with the deal they did with Cleveland today? Would the Rams have wanted Max Crosby for Jared Verse and a first-round pick? What would the Raiders have said to that? I don't know because the Raiders will not. Why would they say that even if it happened or not? It didn't happen. But wow, this is wild today. Wild today. I thought A.J. Brown, and by the end of the show, we could be talking about A.J. Brown going to the Patriots, which is kind of an interesting deal because you can tie in exactly Diana Rossini and Mike Vrabel and the propaganda of A.J. Brown and the propaganda that was going on with that before that relationship was uncovered or discovered, however you want to compare that. That's going to be interesting. If the A.J. Brown deal goes down, that's going to be interesting. You think the Rossini-Vrabel story was big? If he ends up going there, people are going to be like, whoa, okay, let's dive into that. Let's start looking at some old tweets from 2 or 3 years ago. And then I said this a couple months ago, I made plans to go back east. I'm going back east later in the week to see my mom and see my family and, got some things going on. But as I sit back and I look at this, I'm going to be gone for the Golden Knights in the Stanley Cup. I'm like, oh, boy. I got a full credential, and I'm gone for that. But, it's family over sports. And my Knicks are in the NBA Finals. So if you'd like to contact me or see me, do not budge during a Knick game. The entire priority in my life, other than my family, is the Knicks. More important than all my jobs, more important than everything I do. There's nothing more important in my life in the next 2 weeks than my New York Knickerbockers. That's it. My sons, my parents, my wife, my in-laws, yes, you get a pass. You're more important. Nobody else compares to my Knicks. Even my Golden Knights, as I'm a fan of that. I am completely focused on my New York Knicks. 53 years of a drought of epic proportion. You want to talk about a drought with your team? This has been my entire adult life, dating back to when I was a young boy. I need this. I don't ask for much. I need the Knicks to win a title. I need new gear. I got boxes in my garage of Knicks gear, shirts from the 90s I saved for my sons. I need new gear. I need people sending me Knicks championship gear, hats, sweatsuits, whatever it takes. I'm 2 weeks away from Vegas lifting the Stanley Cup and the Knicks having arguably the greatest parade in the history of New York. And that's the monologue brought to you by Modelo. Someday I will finish the monologue and there'll be calls on hold and I'll quit. Until then, I have to remind you that I'm live. I take phone calls. I want people to match my energy. No one can match my energy at noon in Vegas. This is a ghost town at noon in Vegas some days. So I try to get people going at noon, lunchtime, before they get into a food coma, I guess. But we want to get you in here at 702-365-9200. And if you, as a Raider topic, as I'm wearing my Eric Allen Hall of Fame hat, which was handed to me by Eric Allen personally the day he was inducted into the Hall of Fame. I picked that one out today, so I'm going to wear an Eric Allen hat today. As we sit here, if you want to tie Myles Garrett into the Raiders and talk about that and how that improved the Rams, I'm open to that. I think there's a lot of meat on the bone here. This could be a wild day. This could be a crazy day in the NFL. Not so much Vegas, because I think we know the plan of what the Raiders want to do. Mark Anderson will join us in 5 minutes from the AP. Love having him on Mondays. But, we know what the Raiders are doing. They're going to break in Mendoza. They're going to try to turn the team around. New head coach, great offense, Tyler Linderbaum, You know where we're going. But today could be a big day in the NFL. It seems like there's an arms race today. Seems like the Patriots, who went to the Super Bowl, could get A.J. Brown, and the Rams, who definitely feel like they're hosting the Super Bowl, officially got Myles Garrett. This is big boy NFL today, isn't it? Wow. Let's get out to Ruben in Vegas on 920. Hello, Ruben.
Hello, JT. Just wanted to say go Knights go. And for the NBA Finals, I am a Spurs fan, a diehard Raider fan. I was 2 years old the last time the Raiders won the Super Bowl. So I hope, witnessing my Spurs win championships, I hope the Raiders can turn it around in my lifetime and win some Super Bowls. But, JT, the Spurs, we're going to take it in 6, baby. We're going to take it in 6. Go Spurs, go Knights, and go Raiders.
Yeah, I can't do a radio show, we're going to win in 6 with no explanation. My Knicks are going to win in 6. They're rested. They're better. They're deeper. And the most important thing about this, Wemby is a young baby. He's a new player. He's not the great Wemby of Wilt Chamberlain yet or Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Now, if Wemby was in his 7th season and he had 3 MVPs and 5 in a row Defensive Players of the Year, I'd be shaken. I love an inexperienced Wemby as the Knicks have the experience. And I'm happy OKC's out because it would have been tough for the Knicks to beat OKC. OKC's a hell of a team. They're deep. They have the MVP and SGA. I'm pretty confident that my Knicks are going to beat the Spurs. I have the Knicks in 6. I have the Golden Knights in 6 because if you say in 7, that means you don't have an opinion. Anybody can pick a lottery ticket and say they're going to win in 7. That means you have no balls. You have no opinion. You have no opinion if you pick any team in 7 games. That means you're not sure. I'm sure. I'm going Golden Knights in 6. I'm going Knicks in 6. That's what I got as we open up the show, brought to you by Modelo, the power of the fighting spirit of Modelo. I crushed a few Modelos in the pool over the weekend. Getting hot. Oh, boy, it's June. Getting hot. June 1st. Turn it up. Got to run around the house and turn off the AC. Costs more than the house. What's going on here? Hey, get ready. We're about to bake like potatoes in Vegas for 3 months, but we're used to it on the flagship of the Silver and Black.
Brought to you by The Black Hole. Become a member of football's most notorious fans.
I think that's something we grow every day. It's maybe not something that you sit down and write out every single thing, but it's something we grow with every single day. And we have the relationship where we can talk about everything. Really, we talk about everything we have for several years. Whether it be X's and O's, whether it be how we're breaking the huddle, whether it be what Will and Izzy are studying in school that week. But it's just having that relationship where we can talk to each other about anything and everything, and that's how that relationship grows and evolves. We see something that needs fixed, we fix it, whether it be between us and our communication or the entire offense.
Andrew Janocko, who recently spoke to the media. There'll be a media session tomorrow for the Silver and Black, and Mark Anderson will be there as always from the AP, a Raiders insider, Vegas insider, covering sports at the highest level. So, Mark, this was a pretty big deal for the Rams getting Myles Garrett. A lot of people wondering about Max Crosby when he was initially traded to the Ravens. That deal fell apart, but Myles Garrett going to L.A., that's a blockbuster deal.
Yeah, it is. I thought when he signed the deal to stay in Cleveland, I thought he might even finish his career though there. But the Rams are aggressive, and I think it's a great move for them. They're clearly going for it all, and man, he might be the difference maker. You hate to send a young player like Jared Verse away, but if you're going for the Super Bowl now, you don't know what's happening in 4 or 5 years. You can win it now. So I think it's a great move by them.
Yeah, I do. I think it's an aggressive move there. They draft really well in the later rounds, which brought in a lot of good players that gave them the chance to go get McDuffie and now get Myles Garrett. So they got 2 of the best available defensive players there via free agency and or a trade, so they're all in. When I saw you at OTAs the other day, we were talking on the sideline about the changing of this philosophy, coaching philosophy, and Tyler Linderbaum, and he spoke to the media. What was your takeaway with him, just seeing him out there, even though, it's an OTA practice, it's not like camp or a game, but then seeing him at the podium and the impact he's having already?
Yeah, he just seems like he's all about business, and that fits in perfectly with a Kubiak team. And I not that the other linemen weren't, but you can tell, you can see that he just wants to come here and do what needs to be done. I think he's an amazing addition, and there's a two great starting pieces of him and Colton Miller. You get to the top offensive lineman in the league, just between those two, and obviously they got to figure out the other three spots. I think that's going to be among the biggest intrigue when you get to training camp. Who's going to win those three spots? This might be the last real chance for JPJ to make a really good impression if he wants to be a starter in this league, a quality starter. So I think there's going to be a lot of pressure on him to really have a great off season, a great training camp. So, and we'll see if he comes through. If he does, and that will only help the line.
Mark Anderson's our guest. That's really interesting because last year they didn't have good coaching at the offensive line. That was evident. The competition, the lack of communication. A lot of players didn't know if they were going to start, play. I didn't like that about that. Even if you're going to stick with players, a lot of the players didn't know it by midweek if they were going to start on the offensive line by game day, with Dennison being the offensive line coach and probably some better communication overall. That competition for the other three, I'm going to assume that as of today, DJ Glaze has got the heads up on his position along with Jackson Powers-Johnson. But these swing tackles and the guys who are going to compete and the two offensive linemen that were drafted last year, they got to feel good about the fact that they can compete and maybe start here. I think that's going to be a very vigorous topic over the next month or two, is who has better practices, who stays healthier, who's in the best shape available to prove to Clint Kubiak, who doesn't have a lot of ties with the former players on this team who are still here.
Yeah, and I think Kubiak is the mind where a lot of top coaches are. You build from inside out, and so you can't. I don't care what kind of weapons you have. If you don't have a good offensive line, you're just not going to do a lot. So I do like what they're trying to do, and I think that's where signing Linderbaum was a great signal in that regard. They were willing to overpay for him, and I think that's fine. If it's the guy you need to help turn things around, I think you need to do that. And that just showed you their mindset of that we got to get a much better offensive line, because the one they had last season, as you mentioned, the poor coaching, that was a big part of it. But I just don't. I think they just weren't. Of course, losing Miller was just a crushing injury. So they just they couldn't block you and me last year.
Mark Anderson from the AP. I look at the attendance the last couple of years. The attendance was close to perfect with Pete Carroll, Antonio Pierce, Josh McDaniels. You live out in Vegas. You live in Henderson at Southern Highlands. You want to come here, work out, be at this facility. I don't give out, merit badges to people who show up to OTAs. You're supposed to. But overall, a pretty good turnout. It seems like everybody's on board here. You don't hear much about a rebuild. Brock Bowers doesn't want to rebuild. Brock Bowers wants to win. How dare anybody tell Brock Bowers this is going to take 3 or 4 more years? His contract will be up. I think the sense of urgency that I'm getting about how this team is being put together and working together on the field is very impressive over the last month.
Yeah, I mean, and the rebuild is kind of a loaded word, because you're right. Most people think, well, you're talking 3 or 4 years down the road. I don't think that's necessarily the case. I think the rebuild began at in the last season in getting the top pick from Mendoza. That, to me, is where it really began. And so this season, I don't think they want another 4-win team. I just don't think anyone on that staff wants another 4-win team. You want to start seeing you're making real progress, and you want to be seeing it throughout the season. You want to see that you're much better in Week 18 than you were in Week 1. You obviously you never know how injuries are going to hit your team, but if you can see that progress, where the final month of the season you're like, hey, this team, I tell you, over the next year they could be really good. I think if you come out of that final month thinking that, I think that's great. And who knows? you never know how things are going to play off. You still a game here and there, then you might find yourself in a playoff hunt toward the end of the season too.
Yeah, there's an opportunity for some really good things to happen because of all the new players that they brought in via free agency before they even drafted players. The last thing, Mark, on this before we get to training camp is OTAs will wrap up and then the break will come, and then training camp will ramp up really fast. Do you see a big difference or what this team could do during training camp that could be a little bit different? We know there's going to be a dual workout in Houston, but the ability to really push veterans or give veterans a little bit of rest like Colt Miller, or the reps that Mendoza's going to get or won't get because of Cousins. I think this is going to be an exciting topic-driven training camp because there's 5 or 6 topics I'm ready to go with now, and I can't wait for camp to get here.
Yeah, the Mendoza thing obviously is the most intriguing. I find it real interesting that they got AOC running second team instead of Mendoza at this point. I'm surprised by that, frankly. But, I was watching him at practice the same when you and I were together, and it just felt like, and it's understandable if he's got nerves. It just felt like his passes were long, a lot of them, and he just wasn't quite sharp. And that's understandable. He knows there's a lot of attention on him, and I think he's trying to take in also the playbook. He's trying to figure everything out. So I'm not reading too much into it, but I can see why the coaches are like, well, he needs time, and I think by saying that or making it clear that Kirk Cousins is the leader at this point, I think that takes some pressure off Mendoza he knows he's not going to go in week 1 starting unless he just has an amazing training camp. He knows he has the ability to learn, and I would like to see him start taking second team snaps. I think they need to get him in there, and then even sharing first team here and there, just to get that feel of working with the top unit. And I think you're going to see him get better as it goes on. Like I said, I don't read too much into what I saw, but it just reinforced me why the coaches aren't rushing him in there.
Finally, the Golden Knights are playing in a Stanley Cup. Is this city ready for it? I want to say yes, but we aren't. This isn't Detroit. This isn't Toronto. It's not a hockey hotbed, 7 days a week, 24/7. I hope this city gets up for this epic event with the Stanley Cup. We know how tough it is to get back, and for Vegas to get back again, I hope the whole city understands the magnitude of this unbelievable 2 weeks.
Oh, I think so. I mean, I think the Golden Knights fan base is largely spoiled. They haven't gone through the rigors that most fan bases go through. Yeah. And so they expect their team to be in the playoffs every year. And in this year's playoffs, and it reminds me of 23, both years, the first round was, there were really good crowds, but, you could tell it was early. People were still kind of wait and see mode. And as 23 went on and they kept advancing, the crowds get larger and noisier. And I'm seeing that this time around too. I mean, the atmosphere when they eliminated Colorado was off the charts. And Game 3 was too, when they had that massive comeback and 3 goals down. I mean, the place was just as loud as I've ever heard it. So they're into it. I went to practice their last 2 practices here in town, and then one on Saturday. They had, it was packed with fans at the practice. So I think when they've come here for games 3 and 4 and potential game 6, I think the fans are going to be just really into it. And it's going to be an amazing atmosphere.
Yeah, I think you're right on that. Take care, Mark. Enjoy the next couple of weeks. We'll talk to you soon.
Sounds good, JT. Thanks for having me on.
You got it. Mark Anderson from the AP. Had a chance to stand with him at OTAs the other day. I just love talking his mind. It's the sports he covers, the way he thinks about the game, and he's a true pro journalist covering this team here. We're thrilled to have him on. We got Josh Alper coming up at 1:30 from Pro Football Talk. That's a really good guest. And at the top of the hour, Mitch Lawrence from NBA Radio to preview the NBA Finals between San Antonio and the Knicks. I know that there's a lot of NBA players that listen to this show every day. Step up. All right, if you're a Warrior fan, you're a Laker fan, you can get involved with the conversation. Okay, if you're a Warrior fan or a Laker fan, which we have plenty of them, you got to be looking at Wemby and San Antonio saying, this is the team we have to go through. So if you're a Warrior fan in the Bay and you're saying, okay, how are we going to get this thing going again? How are we going to get this going again with Steph Curry and an aging Draymond? Well, look at San Antonio. You're not beating them anytime soon, maybe unless you get Giannis. And with the Lakers, no chance the Lakers can beat the Spurs and the Wemby, beginning of this Wemby young team unless they move LeBron, and I think LeBron's a hell of a player, but they got to move LeBron, which means they just don't offer him a deal. And then they got to bring in younger players who can match up with the younger Spurs, younger guards, because, Clay, that's the way the landscape of the NBA looks now. I think the Knicks spend so much time on veteran players and grooming them to get there. They might be there for the next year or two. I think Brunson could go back to the finals. They can win in the East again. But I think their window is really short. The Spurs look like they have a 10-year window in front of them.
Yeah, they got a window that's open right now, and perhaps if they could continue that out of the East, that's possible. But it really feels like this is the year, especially the way they've been ripping teams and closing games out in the playoffs. They have they're going for the jugular. So you can't wait for next year. It has to happen now.
Yeah, I was happy Oklahoma City lost. I don't have to play the best team to win. I just want to win. I don't have to play them. I don't have to go through Michael Jordan and the Bulls. I don't have to go through Larry Bird. No, I'll go through the easiest team. You get the same ring. You get a banner. Michael Jordan went through Greg Ostertag twice. Michael Jordan went through Thunder Dan Marley. I mean, it wasn't like he was going through the legends of the game. I mean, look at Michael Jordan's championships. They were mostly won in the Eastern Conference, getting through the Eastern Conference Finals, going through battles and wars initially with Detroit, the Celtics, and the Ewing Knicks. Then they got to the finals, and they were facing Cupcake City. It wasn't like they were facing great teams. The Sonics had a really good team led by George Karl. I didn't think they coached that team right in the beginning until they made a push. But Jordan won his championships the day he stepped on the court for Game 1. It was over because he had to go through the East. Now it feels like if you can get out of the West, that'll be interesting. The West feels like they're going to have an advantage over the East for quite some time. And Giannis Antetokounmpo and LeBron James, that's what the summer will be about. The summer will be about those players and where they're going to end up and where they want to go ring chasing. Someone asked me in the chat a while ago, is Myles Garrett ring chasing? No, he was traded. He was traded to the Rams. Ring chasing is when you say, no, I want to go to this team. I want to go to a team that's the best team, and I'm a free agent. Okay, if you're a free agent, you have the right to do it. You're a free agent. But, Myles Garrett, he played a lot of games in cold weather, in the rain, in the sleet, in Cleveland, and got nothing to show for it other than individual stats. Other than individual stats, one playoff win his entire career. Now he's going to the Rams where he hopes he's going to win multiple playoff games and potentially a Super Bowl. Open lines, we should never have one. 702-365-9200 if you want to get in. Grimaldi's came through the house this weekend. Boys walked through the house with a couple of pies, a Brooklyn Bridge. Yeah, there were extra regatta cheese, a Mediterranean and a Caesar salad, all from Grimaldi's, the best pizza I've ever had. 4 locations here in the Valley.
Welcome back to the JT the Brick Show, brought to you by Modelo Especial, the new #1 beer in the U.S.
Not naive that there's a lot in the social media sphere regarding Myles. Nothing is final at this point. We are in discussions of a potential transaction, including him. I'll have a lot more to say about it once it is final, if it does become final.
Yeah, that was before the trade. Browns GM Andrew Berry. I don't think a lot of people in Cleveland are freaking out over this. They love Myles Garrett. They wish him well. They couldn't win with him, and Myles gets an opportunity to win. Ben Fox, who covers gaming, says the Rams were already the slight favorites ahead of the Seahawks to win Super Bowl 61 at sportsbooks. Now they're the only team with single-digit Super Bowl odds and multiple books after the Myles Garrett deal. The Rams' Super Bowl odds go from plus 800 to plus 650 at DraftKings. So I don't think it's going to matter much if you got a ticket on the Rams 3 days ago or you get a ticket on the Rams now. I don't care how good your team is. It's hard to win the Super Bowl. Even with Myles Garrett, it's no lock. Anything could happen in a game. Cold weather, not at home, on the road, injuries. But the Rams clearly made a statement today. Here's Peter Schrager from ESPN. He was on with McAfee talking about the Rams' philosophy going into this year.
This was the big swing, and I've been doing the windy fingers on every show. I've been on saying, hey, McVay and Snead are not done. Demoff is not done. Those guys don't sleep at night. If you think they were just taking Ty Simpson and saying, all right, we're good to go for the start of the season, you don't know how they operate. This is uncover every rock, every leaf, and especially with Stafford and his window, that, hey, we're going to get him all the support. I have not heard Diggs. I have not heard, Brandon Ayuk. I have not heard Debo, all those names. This was the primary move that the Rams have been focused on executing and getting a once-in-a-generation type player to go along with Stafford and that offense. And that's in addition to bringing in Trent McDuffie and Jalen Watson, of course, in free agency this year, and then the trade for McDuffie. Rams are ecstatic right now. They hate losing Jared Verse, obviously, but to pair Myles Garrett with a team that was knocking on the door and was a couple defensive plays away from a Super Bowl last year, This is the move. And anything else is going to be secondary. I mentioned the Stafford part of it because when you have those conversations with Stafford, he could have lost his mind when they took a quarterback in the first round. He didn't. And I think one of the assurances was you're not only going to get paid, you're also going to get another player that's going to be a running mate that gets us over the top, or at least we hope to this offseason.
That's a really good point. Why did Matthew Stafford not go nuts, or his wife, who does that, when they went after Ty Simpson to park him? Because they probably said, we're not done. And that's what Peter Schrager was just insinuating, that they probably went to him and said, we're going to make a big swing from Max Crosby or Myles Garrett or whoever it was. We're going to try to get someone else there to get you back to the Super Bowl. And it's starting to look that way, and it makes a lot of sense. So the Rams, you want to be in this situation as a football fan. You want your team to be really good, and then you want them swinging for the fences. I think the team that has done that even more so than the Rams have been the Eagles under Howie Roseman in the last couple of years. Whenever they want to make a move, they go make a move. And it looks like the Eagles are possibly moving A.J. Brown today to New England. There's a lot of buzz. The Giants also are bringing in Odell Beckham Jr. because Malik Neighbors, his knee could be a problem. So they're loading up on some secondary receivers now because they just want to have bodies in the building as they get going here. So today's a heavy day. Today's a heavy day in the NFL. And also the Bears. What a train wreck with their stadium hopes. If the Bears move to Indiana, the Chicago Bears as a brand are dead. It's a dead brand if they leave Chicago. So like I always say, it's not the responsibility of the owners of a football team to build your stadium. There is some civic pride and some things you have to do to keep your team. We're very familiar with that around here. All right, JT, back with you as we continue on hour number 2 on a blockbuster day today with the Myles Garrett move. But I'm all over the NBA Finals. As a diehard Knicks fan, I've rated my whole life for this. My whole life, I'm all in. I get an opportunity now to talk to the great Mitch Lawrence from NBA Radio, one of the best hosts and opinion men out there. And here we are, Mitch. We've been talking about this for a couple of months here. Were you surprised that San Antonio was good enough to win Game 7 on the road in OKC?
No, I wasn't, because it became apparent to me that they were just better than Oklahoma City. And I think the problem for Oklahoma City, besides the Spurs, just from top to bottom with their guys, you can't go – how far are you going to go without your second-best player in J-Dub, Jalen Williams, and their third-best player in a lot of ways in A.J. Mitchell? So that – you can't survive those type of losses. They're going to catch up with you. And so they were a little undermanned, but the way the Spurs were playing and Victor's playing and those guys, everybody was talking about their lack of experience. They had plenty of experience. And the fact that they were able to win a couple games in Oklahoma City, you as a Knicks fan should be worried about that, because if you can win as a road team in Oklahoma City, you can win in the Garden. So I wasn't at all surprised. And I think the Spurs-Knicks is going to be a great matchup. But I hate to tell you this, JT, and I grew up outside New York, and I remember the 70 championship, the 73 very well. I am picking the Spurs here.
Okay, fair enough. I think the Spurs, especially with Victor Wembanyama, I can understand why. I will say this. I did not expect Chet Holmgren to disappear at the level that he did. Now, clearly he didn't want to take Wembanyama into the paint. Fair enough, because I'll tie that in with the Knicks in a moment. But he didn't want to shoot on the outside. I mean, he looked like he was a scared junior varsity player going up against the varsity. What happened there?
I'll tell you what. I don't know, but man, first of all, here's a guy who's all NBA third team. So he's considered a top 15 player in the league. I know there have been guys over the years who haven't shown up for Game 7 and had atrocious Game 7s. But when you're playing scared and it looks like you don't want to be there, like you say, that takes it to a completely other level, to the point where I'm with everybody who thinks that the Thunder have to get rid of him. I know they're saying the right things. We're not here without Big Chet, all that stuff. But I just don't know how you recover from that. And with the money they're going to start paying him with this crazy extension, which I thought was outlandish to begin with, because what is he anyway? 15-7, and you're going to pay him upwards of $41 million plus going north all the time. So no, it was a horrendous performance, and he's playing at home. It's not like he was playing on the road. So factor that in. I mean, man, it was just I didn't think it's already bad enough. They don't have their second best player, and they don't have, like I said, and they don't have and AJ Mitchell. Now the way Chet played, there's no way that SGA could get out of that alive and get back to the finals. I got to give him a lot of credit. He did the best he could. But you want to know something? And this is going to be Brunson's problem. It's going to be the Knicks' problem too. The Spurs are an elite defensive team. The Knicks have not played against that in the playoffs. I know the Knicks have had an amazing run, 11 straight, and everybody in New York is thinking that they're just going to take San Antonio apart. Guys, you got to slow the roll there. They have not played a team with the elite rim protector in Victor who can get out on threes just as well as he can block shots in the same possession. And they've got a bunch of big athletic wings who can deal with Brunson. So, the days of playing the Hawks, the Sixers, and the Cavaliers are long over. Wait till the Knicks, and they know this. The Knicks are going up against a team that is one of the top defensive teams. And by the way, I don't think the Knicks are as good as Oklahoma City. I mean, 11-game winning streak notwithstanding, but you can make the argument that the Spurs beat the better team. So we'll see how it plays out. But I think the big thing from your standpoint, if you're a Knicks fan, and you are, JT, you got to be worried about that Spurs defense.
Yeah, I am, and I think they're a worthy opponent. I would have rather played the Spurs than OKC. I just think OKC was a little bit deeper, battle-tested the reigning MVP. And I think Knicks fans like myself, and we're joined by Mitch Lawrence, Sirius XM NBA Radio, the big thing is we're getting Wemby early, nowhere near his prime. Not year 6, 7, 8, where he's a 3-time MVP, 6-time Defensive Player of the Year. I'm not saying he's not great already, but he's completely inexperienced. He hasn't played on the stage, not that a whole bunch of Knicks have either here, but this is like playing Wilt Chamberlain or Lou Alcindor and Kareem early in their career when they're on their way to be Mount Rushmore guys. And I think from watching Chet Holmgren, I think that Karl Anthony Towns, OG Anunoby, Bridges, is it smart to attack Wembanyama and try to get him in foul trouble with the depth that the Knicks have with their bigs, especially Mitchell Robinson, who's not a scorer but's got 5 fouls to give?
I'll tell you what, if you can get him off the floor in this series, that would be huge. The last time they played the Spurs in '99 with Ewing out and Larry Johnson on one leg and their front court was just decimated, they had nobody, they couldn't get Tim Duncan off the floor. He averaged basically 46 minutes a game. Mm-hmm. In 5 games, JT, he picked up 12 fouls. They could not get him out of the game, the Knicks. So, yeah, they got a better chance now because he's going to have to go out and guard Karl Anthony Towns. And if you're a Knicks fan, you got to hope that Karl Anthony Towns has 3 or 4 games where he's incredible from three-point range. And he does this, he's done a total turnaround with assists to turnovers that we've seen in the past. And you got to hope that Mitchell Robinson's pinky doesn't leave him a little compromised and limited, and he can actually soar and dunk the ball and be an offensive force on the offensive glass. You want to hope for that. So, yeah, there are a lot of things that the Knicks have going for them that have to play out over, the next, 15, whatever it is, days starting Wednesday. But they haven't seen a guy like Wemby yet. And that's going to be a huge adjustment for their offense, I think, because you heard SGA after they lost. He's like, this guy who's back there, he's a lot different than anybody else who protects the rim. And that's a problem.
Mitch Lawrence is our guest. I look at you also as an historian, someone who looks back on the history of this league. And you mentioned 70 and 73 for the Knicks. I think this is the smartest Knicks team since 73. It goes through all the Ewing era, Carmelo, Bernard King. They've had great players sometimes and decent teams, but whatever Mike Brown did to get this team to play smarter, not taking stupid threes with leads, they're making the extra pass. They're so selfless. They're doing everything to get their teammates involved. I'm a big extra pass guy. Move the ball, make the extra pass, get the easier shot. When did this happen? Was it down 2-1 to Atlanta when Mike Brown said, we're going to do this differently, follow me, I can get you to the promised land?
Yeah, and I think you've seen it. They're not as, Brunson doesn't seem to dominate the ball as much as he did. And Karl Anthony Towns this is the best version of Karl Anthony Towns we've ever seen. Last year in the postseason, he had 24 assists and 40 turnovers. That's a bad figure for anybody. 20 more turnovers than assists, almost double. Here he's got 82 assists in the playoffs and 37 turnovers. That is a tremendous job by him. So he's got to continue to play that way, and especially not pick up the dumb fouls. And they've got to have the great thing the Knicks have going for them right now, I think you'd agree, is that during this 11-game winning streak, they're playing lights out, but they're scoring at will.
Yeah.
They're scoring at will because the competition was so bad. And, I know a lot of people are saying, JT, hey, this is the greatest Knick run in the playoffs. The 11 in a row, you can argue that. But how about this? In 1970, to get to beat the Lakers in the finals, they had to go through, in the first round, Wes Unseld, an MVP guy, Earl Monroe. In the second round, it was Kareem, a young Kareem. Beating the Lakers, it was Baylor, Elgin Baylor, Wilt, and West. Right there, those are 3 MVP players I named, and basically 5 or 6 immortals. And then in 73, it was Baltimore in the first round. They went through Unseld and Elvin Hayes. In the second round, they had to go through Havlicek and Cowan, and then Wilt and West in the final. So this run, when you compare the Knicks, they've gone through nothing compared to what they had to go through. But the 11 straight wins and the way they've played, my God, we've never seen. You talk about the smartest Knicks team, this has got to be one of them. And they're a joy to watch compared to the teams in the 90s. I was there a lot in the 90s, obviously. And that's a whole different style. That was bully ball. It was really Patrick Ewing and a bunch of guys. So, listen, it's totally different. And you know what? This is one of the reasons the Knicks are so appealing to the Knicks fans, because they're such a pleasure to watch.
Yeah, Mitch Lawrence, as we wrap it up. So they would quiet all their critics, including you, and you're not a critic, but you're picking San Antonio. If they win and beat San Antonio, this silences everyone who says the Knicks had an easy road. It was easier, but if they beat San Antonio in 6, the respect level for the Knicks will go through the roof.
No doubt about it, because you beat the team that knocked off the defending champions. And by the way, they also beat a Minnesota team that you could argue was better than Cleveland. The Knicks haven't gone through much, but no, if they continue to play and reel off 4 wins and, 6, you're talking about winning in 6. If they can do that, yes, they're going to, some of these guys are going to end up having their numbers retired and getting statues. Now, in terms of all-time Knicks, I still go with Willis Reed, the only MVP in the history of the team, and a guy like Walt Frazier, because they both won 2. And Walt, of course, had the greatest Game 7 known to man in the NBA Finals in 70. And, we'll slot Brunson probably in, over Ewing. But, this would be historic. This would be epic. And, anybody who can end a 53-year streak, you got to tip your hat to.
Last one. Do you believe Adam Silver loves this in a year that you and I talked a lot about tanking, load management, a lot of the problems with the NBA? This gets cleaned up beautifully. If this goes 7 and you got Wembanyama on a global stage and the Knicks, who haven't won in 53 years in the number 1 media market, the NBA couldn't dream up a better scenario.
No, this for them is much better than Oklahoma City, because Oklahoma City is kind of a villain team. But no, they don't have the must see in them, even SGA, like you have in Victor. What Victor? You first of all have the New York market, and Knicks fans are starved. We all know that. 53 years, but the Victor, he is the next big deal. And I'm not saying that because he's 7'4", 7'5". He's going to be winning MVPs, and he'll win. If he loses here, he'll come back and win a title as long as his body holds up. So the league, after a miserable year in terms of load management and tanking, and let's not forget, FBI investigation set, the evidence is still rearing its ugly head of guys like, Terry Rozier. Don't forget that all strikes to all those 3 things strike to what? The integrity of the whole league was under fire the whole year. This saves them a little bit, at least when you're talking about a great finals.
Thank you, Mitch. Talk to you down the road. Enjoy the finals. I always appreciate your insight and analysis. Thank you.
Always love coming on. Thanks, JT, and good luck to your Knicks, huh?
Thank you, my friend. Appreciate it. Mitch Lawrence, NBA Radio, does a great job. Nice to get him. I love having him on because he's a host and he's a great guest. And I'm a host, and I love coming on radio shows as a guest because I bring energy. You gotta, if you're a guest, you come in, you gotta have passion and energy. He does. And man, he's been around a long time covering the NBA. All right. Thanks to the Bricklayers who we hear. Coming up next, Jeremy Roenick, one of the greatest American-born hockey players ever. JR will join us, longtime friend of mine. So we'll talk to him coming up on the other side about the Golden Knights in the Stanley Cup Final. So Jeremy Roenick, and then at the bottom of the hour, Josh Alper from Pro Football Talk. How about this hour lined up? Mitch Lawrence into Jeremy Roenick into Josh Alper, Pro Football Talk. The Golden Knights are in the Stanley Cup. Can you please wake up, Vegas, and pretend you're into this? Let's wake up, Vegas. I've been screaming at you for a month. It's here. We're in the Stanley Cup Final. Wake up.
As the puck with 9 seconds. Colorado can't get it in at center ice. Eichel banks it in. This one will go to the final seconds, and this one is a home ice clincher. For the first time in franchise history, the Knights clinch the Western Conference at T-Mobile Arena. For the third time in 9 years, they're going to the Stanley Cup Final.
Oh, that sounds so good. Dan Duva on the call, our sister station right here, our home for the Vegas Golden Knights here. JT back with you, brought to you by Raising Cane's Chicken Fingers, One Love. How do you think they feeling down with everybody going to have VGK tailgates and people over to the house? Raising Cane's Chicken Fingers, that incredible sauce made in store every day. Get the lemonade, the iced tea. It's both incredible. The best chicken fingers in the world. Proud partner of our show. I'm proud to bring in my buddy, longtime friend, one of the greatest hockey players, a Hall of Famer, American-born, Jeremy Roenick, kind enough to join us. JR, my Golden Knights back in the Stanley Cup. Can you believe it?
You know, I can believe it because, and by the way, what's up, JT? I love being on with you. I love
Thank you, my friend.
Our friendship, our friendship for so many years, and appreciate you bringing me on to chat Stanley Cup action. And, you know, I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised because Vegas will go down as probably the best built organization in history from an expansion aspect. What they have been able to do and the team that they've been able to produce and the electricity that city and that arena brings is second to none. And some of the tough decisions. I mean, getting rid of Cassidy at the end of the year and bringing on John Tortorella, who a lot of people questioned or were surprised. But this team is a beast. They are playing big. They're playing strong. They're playing aggressive. They're playing mean, and they're playing very well defensively. So, and it, obviously to beat a team like Colorado, yes, they did have injuries, but to sweep a team like Colorado, who made a mockery pretty much of the first half of the year and just blowing everybody away to win that President's Cup trophy, this team looks like it's going to be very tough to beat.
JR, are they kind of ruthless the way that they're running this team when you look at management and Mr. Foley, if they want to go get another player, they want to go get a great player, an all-star from another team, they just do it. And if they got to sit stone for a little bit and work and massage what they're doing with their roster until someone gets healthy. I mean, the word has been used, ruthless out here, because of the way they got rid of Cassidy at the time. I'm like, wait, there's 8 games left and you're firing a Stanley Cup winning coach, but it worked. Everything they're doing seems to be so intense and over the top to have the best roster available.
Well, sometimes you have to do things that are not popular with people. And sometimes it's a guess whether it's going to work. And I think there's a lot of people that question whether getting rid of Cassidy at the time was a good play. Now, let's not forget, John Tortorella is one of the better coaches that we've seen in National Hockey League over the last 20 years and has won a Stanley Cup. Is a little bit more on the old school style coaching with his tactics and the way he his forceful ways. But again, I'm sure he has changed a lot over the years and is now very much more in tune with the player of today. Now, I'll fill you in on something really cool. There was a player on the Vegas Golden Knights team that texted me at the end of the season, and the text was, "John Tortorella saved our season." So if you're sitting there as an outsider questioning it, but you have the players inside the locker room that have that mentality, I would have to call it a brilliant move. And sometimes you can't be afraid to make those dangerous moves. And Vegas has done that, time and time again. Getting Mitch Marner over the summer was a brilliant move, and look how that's paying off. So, and that, like I said, that goes down into my earlier statement, JT. It's like Vegas is going to go down as the best expansion creation team of all time. This is their 10th season in the league, and now they're in their third cup appearance and have already won a cup. I don't think any expansion team has ever had that sort of success.
Jeremy Roenick joins us. Tell us about Rod Brind'Amour, the player you competed against, and now the coach. And what is, I just hear these stories that he's a workout machine. He's lifting weights with his team. He could still skate if he had to. The guy is just a physical beast and very demanding. What's the style of play as a player that he brought over to being a head coach?
Yeah, it's very funny that you said that. He is a freak of nature. He is a workout guru. When he was in Philly and a couple other places, he was literally banned from the workout room, from the weight room, because he would work out so much. It was just in his blood. I'll tell you another story. We were drafted back to back. I was drafted 8th overall in 1988. Rod Brind'Amour was drafted 9th overall, and we actually were roommates at the NHL Combine before the draft. I was 155 pounds, and I didn't have a muscle on my body, and all of a sudden, Rod Brind'Amour comes into my room and takes his clothes off, and he is shredded to the nines. I've never seen anything like it, and it scared me to death. I'm like, no way am I going to be able to outplay this guy. And that's just he's a model of consistency. His work ethic, the way he plays the game. He was one of the best NHLers that I played against on both sides of the puck, and it's not surprising me one bit that his team plays a lot like he did. It's no flash and dance, no hurrah. It's playing smart. It's playing aggressive both ways, defensively and offensively. I think this is the best coached team in the National Hockey League. The Carolina Hurricanes are. Look at their playoff performance so far this year. Every single line plays exactly the same way, and they are relentless on the puck. They absolutely swarm the other team and take away every option and speed of reaction time. And then they all have their own, they all know their own jobs within the system, and they play it to a T. And of course, which was the big call of the playoffs, was Rod Brind'Amour putting Freddie Anderson in goal to start the playoffs. And that has turned out to be an unbelievable move, because he is just on fire. We just have to hope that his brain stays where it is. I don't know if you know, but Freddie Anderson's agent was Claude Lemieux, and it's been a hard couple of days for him. But this team is 100% the real deal and deserves to be in the final, along with the Vegas Golden Knights.
JR, last one when it comes to Canada not getting to the Cup. Most of these players and these rosters are full of Canadian-born players. You were one of the great American players of all time. What do you tell when fans come up to you and they talk about the fact that Canada has struggled so much to win the Cup? It's been such a long drought, and now teams from Vegas, Carolina are competing for the Cup. When you talk to these Canadian hockey fans that you come across, what do you tell them with all the talent and the history that they have with that sport and this epic drought they're on?
Yeah, it is pretty tough. There's no question, and I'll be the first person to say I hope the Cup returns to Canada at some point, sometime soon. 1993 was the last Cup won by Montreal Canadiens. So it's been 33 years since the Canadian team has won, and there's a couple aspects for that. Number one, the economy, right? The state of the dollar in Canada. It's tougher for teams to put together and to put the right players into roster positions with a lot of guys challenging each other for big salaries, right? It's a different economy to play in Canada. I think number two is the pressure that it is playing in Canada, playing in Toronto, playing in Montreal, playing in Calgary, where every single person in the city is living every breath and every dying moment with the team, the scrutiny of the media. You don't do well. The next thing you know, you're ridiculed in public. You're always being recognized. And I think there's a pressure, especially in this day and age, where I just don't feel that the players are as mentally tough or as durable to take criticism. That it's a little bit more scary. And I think with that comes the pressure. You fold under pressure. There's a lot of aspects that happen because of Canada, but it's a great country. It's Canada's hockey hockey is their sport, and I'm sure it'll be there at some time soon. But it's been an amazingly long drought.
JR, keep hitting bombs off the tee and sinking those long putts, my friend. I hope to see you soon.
Thanks, JT. I love you to death, and enjoy the final. It's going to be an epic end to an unbelievable season.
Thanks, my friend. There he is, Jeremy Roenick. Wow, what a good friend, what a great guy, and thrilled that we can get him to talk about that as we move on. Josh Alpert, kind enough to join us. Wow, from Pro Football Talk on one of the busiest days of the offseason. Josh, good to get a few minutes with you. Let's start off with the Myles Garrett move. Was it surprising, shocking, expected for you, considering what the Rams gave up with Verse along the way?
I wouldn't say it was expected, but it wasn't shocking either. The Browns had done some contractual maneuvering early in the offseason to make it a little easier to trade Myles Garrett, and they insisted that it wasn't about that. But when there's no other explanation for something, you have to look for the most obvious one. And they were, I think, allowing themselves the optionality. And the package that they got, Jared Verse is an excellent player, obviously a second first-round pick next year as they continue to look for the quarterback. And some other draft stuff makes sense for a team that was paying a lot for Myles Garrett and getting phenomenal play from Myles Garrett, but not winning games. And so I think that if this can allow them to address other areas and perhaps, build a winner by the time Garrett is starting to, sunset his career a bit in what their real timeline looks like, it makes a lot of sense.
The Rams began trading away their first-round picks in 2017. From 2017 through 2026, they used just 2 first-round picks, and with that, they got a 92-57 record. That's a .617 percentage since 2017. What do you like about that philosophy in-house on what they're doing with their picks and making trades at this rate?
You're trying to win the Super Bowl in the NFL, and the Rams do that every single year in a way that a lot of teams seem to be afraid to do it. And I think I appreciate that boldness. I appreciate that brashness, and I think at the exact moment right now, you look at what Matthew Stafford has left, let's say 2, maybe 3 years, you want to maximize every chance you can get. And Myles Garrett gives them that. This was already a team that was as close as you could be to winning the NFC without doing so. You add a player like Myles Garrett who, in the short term, I don't want to say upgrade on Jared Verse, who's a really good player, but it creates a different feeling. It's a different thing. You're create a player who's never gotten to taste the kind of success that great players want to taste, and you're giving him a chance to do so in LA. The Super Bowl is going to be in LA this year. They won the Super Bowl when it was in LA last time after making an all-in trade for Matthew Stafford. It's their script. It has worked for them, and I think it's better for the NFL when you have teams taking big swings like this.
Josh Alpert's our guest, Pro Football Talk. One more on this move, just outside the box for a second. Would it be nuts to sit down with Aaron Donald and say, come out of retirement? You're in better shape than anyone, including Myles Garrett. He's proven that in every video he drops. He's healthy. He walked away in the absolute prime of his career. Would that be nuts to say, now that we have Myles here, come on out of retirement and play for us again?
I think it would be nuts not to make that call.
Right.
And I'm sure that Sean McVay and Aaron Donald have remained in contact. And if you did a thing where you said to him, we won't even ask you to play until November. We just want you to be in prime physical condition for the stretch run in the playoffs. How could you not? I mean, how could you not explore that? At the very least, explore that. It was one of the first thoughts that came to my mind as well.
All right, let's move to the breaking news also about Philadelphia trading wide receiver A.J. Brown to the Patriots in exchange for the Patriots' 2028 first-round pick and a 2027 fifth-round pick. As this deal goes down there, overall, very unique deal for me because it seemed like Howie knew he had to move him because of the relationship or lack thereof with Jalen Hurts. Even though they won the Super Bowl, now he goes to Drake May after the Patriots already been to a Super Bowl and they get that young quarterback, another go-to number one receiver. How do you see that deal?
I think you laid it out well. I'm impressed that the Eagles were able to get a first-round pick despite knowing that they had to move on from A.J. Brown and that they had made so many moves this offseason already to fill out the wide receiver position in a way that made it clear they were not going to have A.J. Brown back with the team. And yes, it's a 28 pick, so that's a bit down the road. But for a team like the Eagles, that 28 pick could turn into the 12th pick in the draft next year if there's a player that they love. Or it could turn into a great player at the trade deadline this year. So, Howie Roseman, I think he'd really maximize the return in a tough spot. Obviously, the cap hit was the big reason why they had to wait till now. And the Patriots, I think the Patriots, it's a worthwhile risk. You got rid of Stephon Diggs. Mm-hmm. You hope that the A.J. Brown relationship with Mike Vrabel means things won't be so volatile if things don't go as well as you would hope right out of the gate. I think it should work out well for them. But, Brown has been unhappy in two different places now. And there's a history with these kinds of guys where that happens. But the talent wins out every time, and he's got it.
Josh, you wrote earlier today, I read the column on Odell Beckham Jr. coming back to the Giants. And as you dove into this, and I got to think John Harbaugh is looking around saying, did I sign up for this? I mean, looking for aging receivers because of Malik Neighbors. What can you tell us with your research and your sources about the severity of Neighbors and the rehab and why the Giants would go down this road? It looks like they're just trying to pick away and trying to get bodies in there that can run routes here to help Jackson Dart. How do you see it?
Well, I think Harbaugh said it last week when he was talking about Neighbors. It's impossible to predict when he'll be back. We've seen it with ACLs too many times. And you do need bodies, and they have Darius Slayton had core muscle surgery this offseason. So, you're double, it's kind of a double whammy there. Gunnar Olszewski tearing his Achilles last week. That's more of a punt returner than a receiver thing. But, they needed bodies, plain and simple, before you get into what those bodies can do. Oh, look, anyone expecting Odell Beckham Jr. to be Malik Neighbors is living, 10, 12 years ago, whenever it was that Odell Beckham was the hot new thing out of LSU, not Neighbors. But if there's any juice to be squeezed there, I think Schuster is a guy who played for Matt Nagy in Kansas City. He's going to be able to help communicate the offense, connect people. He's going to be the kind of a reliable veteran guy if Slayton can't get back as hoped and maybe in addition to him. But look, the Giants' offense is not going to be dynamic without Malik Neighbors, and Odell Beckham and Juju Smith-Schuster don't change that. That's simply not who those receivers are. But it is more about being able to field a full complement of receivers who Jackson Dart can throw to, and they hope be productive with, even if it's not on the level that you would hope in Neighbors.
Finally here, there's two blockbuster deals that go down on June 1st. Are you expecting more? Are you hearing through sources that there are teams kicking the tires for Max Crosby or other great players out there that were rumored to be traded?
Well, the Crosby one is a little different because you don't have the same contract implications that you had with Garrett and Brown in terms of timing. Alvin Kamara is a name to watch. The Saints signed Travis Etienne during free agency. The cap hit for moving Kamara at this point is a little easier to swallow. He hasn't been at the voluntary work. It looks like that may be something that could be coming. I wouldn't expect it to be a blockbuster on the scale of a first round pick, of course, but he's a big name back who some teams looking to flesh out their running back core in ahead of the summer may look in that direction if he doesn't wind up even just being released at some point.
Thanks, Josh, for the time. A lot of breaking news. Appreciate talking to you as always. All the best.
My pleasure.
You got it. Josh Alper, Pro Football Talk. And I can sense, as we were talking, in the middle of that interview, the A.J. Brown deal went down officially. And as it went down officially, he's got to get back to work. So I'd wrap that up a little bit early because all these guys are just banging away on their keyboards and putting out content. We have 2 huge deals today. Massive deals, Clay Baker, that came about here and are with 2 of the best teams in football. So everybody else who didn't go to the Super Bowl, the Rams didn't go, but they won earlier. And the Patriots who did go, they upgraded their teams. Everyone around the league saying, if they can do it, what are we doing?
2 franchise-altering trades happened today, and one in which a team feels like their window is now. They have to win now, as well as the Patriots feeling like we can't have any wasted time now coming off of a Super Bowl appearance. We have to build on this momentum with whatever we can do and maybe grow old with A.J. Brown because there's still plenty of tread on that tire.
A.J. Brown's a good player. I believe he has the ability to be a head case. Odell Beckham Jr. has been a head case in this league. You cannot tell me that John Harbaugh is happy to have Odell Beckham Jr. You can't tell me that John Harbaugh left Baltimore, did not get the Buffalo job that he could have waited another week, and now he's sitting around and going, Odell Beckham Jr. and Juju Smith-Schuster are my wide receivers? I didn't think he signed up for that. Didn't think he signed up for that at all. All right, when we come back, Raider Dad is going to check in. The amount of work that he does in this community is fantastic. There's a big Monday's Dark coming up with him. We'll tell you all about that. If you have extra tickets to Raider games, Raider Dad will take the tickets and bring kids to the game. Instead of selling your tickets to the scoundrels in Kansas City, Denver, and in other markets. Raider Dad will tell you why coming up next. He'd appreciate it if you would hook him up so he can take kids to games.
Welcome back to the JT the Brick Show, brought to you by the DeCasta Verde Law Group. If you get injured in an accident, call 702-222-9999.
They motion everyone to the left, one-on-one for Bowers. Here comes the blitz. Gino sees it, lobs it towards the end zone. Bowers shoved to the ground.
Still got
made the catch.
Still got it.
Oh, my God.
Still
Bowers made the grab on his backside. One of the toughest catches you'll ever see. Brock Bowers on the turf caught it with his one hand, and he smothered it into his chest. Wow! That is Brocktimus Prime, and that is a Raiders touchdown.
Jason Horowitz on the call, the voice of the Raiders. JT back with you as we continue on. Brought to you by our great friends at M Resort Spa and Casino. They got tremendous concerts, events coming up. 2 towers are better than one, especially if you want to watch the Vegas Golden Knights in the postseason. Now the Stanley Cup Final. They have a VGK bar, which will be off the hook. Everybody should head on out to the M Resort as I welcome in Raider Dad, who does such an amazing job in the community, taking kids to games. And I'm proud of you. Monday's Dark with Mark Chinook. That's a big accomplishment. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me on, JT. I really appreciate you sharing your platform with a nonprofit like this.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. And that's what I've wanted to do my whole career is put people on the radio who make a difference. And now that I've seen it up close with you on the ground, at the tailgates, taking kids to the game, this has grown. This is really something now. You had to get the word out in the beginning. How does it feel now being someone who's viral in the Raider community that people really count on and trust?
It's just, whenever I first started, I never really thought it would just take off the way that it has. And you've seen so many fans get behind it, but we've really tried to get the community behind to support these experiences that kids truly need in the Las Vegas community. As you know, Monday's Dark selected us. They selected, I think it's around 200 nonprofits that they run twice a month. They raise $10,000, and they give it to different causes in the community. And we were lucky enough to be one of those nonprofits this or not this Monday, but the following Monday, June 8th. And it's really impactful to have something like this because most people don't know, I raise, with the help of Raider Nation, money to support these experiences, and it's about 75% of our budget is going to be raised in one night. So we're honored to be one of the nonprofits this year.
This is great because Mark Chinook is one of the most generous people in town, and what he does with Monday's Dark and the amount of money that you know is going to be raised before you go in there and what you're going to get coming out of that from another valuable resource in this community is great. So for those who are new to you, coming up this season, I think there's a great opportunity with preseason game tickets. I never want to see a ticket go wasted, especially to kids who have never gone to a Raider game. What's it look like for preseason games here and how to get kids to the game?
So every year this will be season 5, and the One Nation Foundation always supports this. And we guarantee 50 kids to one Raiders game. It's not about just handing out tickets to kids, but it's actually creating that moment for them so they can always remember their first game, whether it's food caterers, people coming out, face painting. There's so many people that just come to be a part of the tailgate experience, and it helps us decrease costs for these families because it's not just the ticket price that it keeps kids out of sporting events at times, but it's the full experience, the parking, food and beverage. We don't want kids to walk by and not have a Raiders jersey or a T-shirt or whatever. We're giving out a necklace. So it's a great event. A lot of people, whether you're a business, a fan of Raider Nation, they stop by because they want to see the moments up close. And that's what we tell everybody. We need you guys to show up so you can see what we're doing and what you're supporting. And throughout the year, fans will give us tickets. Instead of selling their tickets, they're give them to a child. So we couldn't thank everybody enough for getting behind the mission of Raider Dad.
Raider Dad joins us here as we're getting ready for Monday's Dark coming up on the 8th. And tell everybody how they can attend and how they can be a part of that because Mark is great with this. I'm going to be out of town or I would be there. I want to make sure as many people can go there as possible and experience what's going to happen that night.
Yeah, so if you want to attend, you can go to the spacelv.com, reserve tickets. Show up with us. There's a lot of raffles going on from different businesses in our community that have supported not only Monday's Dark, but Raider Dad for this event. They have different shows going on, different acts. If you haven't been to it, you have to go there, see what it's about, and then you can just, feel the magic in the community.
What's your goals this year to have a nonprofit? You have to have goals set up, and as you're out there raising money, and this will be $10,000 that'll help out. And when you look at the games, the home openers against Miami, I think that's a game the Raiders have to win. It's the home opener. We don't have many home openers. We've been on the road. The importance of that game, and I'll feel great at the Torch if I know there's some fans coming to this game, some kids who have never been to a game before, and they're getting tickets donated to you and not being scalped by the opposing fans coming in from Miami.
Our goals this year is just to keep our kids in mind, keep getting as many kids as possible to Raider games. Since 2022, we've got in 610 kids to Raider games, and we're just trying to get more of our community to support this because a lot of people are like, we want you out there for this game, that game, but we're like, we only have so many resources, so we're really trying to continue to evolve the experiences for these kids, but get more of the community behind it. Home opener, since you brought that up, we're going to be doing a Raider Bowl. It'll be the second annual. Last year, Lincoln Kennedy came out. Fans come together, raise money, so we can continue to get tickets, merch, and just create the next generation of Raider fans here in Las Vegas.
Well, proud of your success, man, and whatever I can do to help you on the show whenever you have something big coming. Monday's Dark is a big deal because of Mark Chinook and what they do and the credibility that he picked you for that $10,000 to keep you going and help building on your vision of what we're doing in the community. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks, JT. I'll see you soon, all right?
You got it, Raider Dad. What a job he does. I love doing this. I got 10 minutes a day for any nonprofit in town that's legit and doing something to help kids. That's the least I can do. So I appreciate him. And, I try to slide by the tailgates at least when I can. And I got a weird tailgating vibe because I got to get in there early for the pregame, but I get there early in park, and I've been to his tailgate, and I've seen the kids and the look on their face when they're going to a game. When you've never been to a game, a preseason game is a really big deal. I say that all the time. A preseason ticket should never go wasted. You know, I understand when you're looking at the price of some of these tickets for sports, you just want to sell your ticket, or if you're not going to go, you give it to a friend. Why not donate them to Raider Dad, especially the preseason game? If you can't go and you don't want to go, I want to go. I want to see preseason football. I get a chance to call the games. But you want to be in the building to see Mendoza play? Imagine a kid becoming a Raider fan for the first time, and they'll remember that their first ever game was you donating your tickets so Raider Dad can come out and bring some kids. I think it's great. Breaking news, the Eagles are trading Pro Bowl wide receiver A.J. Brown to the Patriots for a 2028 first-round pick and a 2027 fifth-round pick. That is the better of their 2 fifth-round picks. So, look, you look at next year's draft, they're going to get a fifth-round pick. That's not a big deal, but in 2028, the Patriots are going to get the Eagles' first-round pick. Now, if the Eagles are really good and the Eagles' first-round pick is 25, it's still a first-round pick. But A.J. Brown was not happy in Philadelphia. He wasn't happy in Tennessee at the end. But he did work well with Mike Vrabel. And I think this is interesting because we've been hearing about this potential trade for quite some time. Dianna Russini, with her connection, air quotes, to Mike Vrabel, was talking this thing up for quite some time, and she's nowhere to be found today on this news, which is understandably why. But, Clay, I think for a team that went to the Super Bowl and lost, and they got dominated in the Super Bowl. They got boat raced in the Super Bowl, and Seattle didn't score a lot of points. That was not a high-scoring game. For New England to come back and say, we went to the Super Bowl, we're going to get another great player, that's a good move for them.
Yeah, because you want to keep that momentum going, especially in the progress of somebody like Drake May. You want to make sure that he has every weapon at his disposal.
Hell of a show today. Josh joined us. Really enjoyed having him on. Also, Raider Dad. Fantastic to talk to Jeremy Roenick and Mitch Lawrence from NBA Radio. Fast show, good show. Q coming up next with a really big show on a Monday. Thanks for joining us, everybody. We're back tonight on Mad Dog Sports Radio, 8 p.m. Pacific. And heavy day tomorrow as the Golden Knights kick off the Stanley Cup Final in Carolina. We'll be all over that tomorrow in this time slot as we have the Stanley Cup for Vegas. Let's take advantage of that.